Who hurt you? The Mafia boss roared, his voice rattling the baccarat crystal on his mahogany desk. He stared at the bruised, trembling woman he secretly revered. Then his assistant handed him the iPad. The security footage didn't just show an assault. It revealed a betrayal demanding an absolute bloodbath. Chloe Harper was used to being invisible. At 28, she was a brilliant senior forensic accountant at Oculus Financial, a sleek Wall Street firm that, on paper, handled international logistics. In reality, Oculus was the high-tech laundromat for the Romano Syndicate, the most ruthless organized crime family in Chicago, which had recently expanded its iron grip into New York. Chloe knew exactly who she worked for, but she kept her head down. She was a size 20 in a corporate culture that worshipped East-Twos. While her colleagues flitted around the office in sample-size Chanel, Chloe dressed in tailored Navy Lane Bryant suits, hiding her lush curves beneath sensible blazers. She was the woman people came to when they needed a $3 million discrepancy solved by midnight. But she was never the woman invited to the celebratory drinks at Soho House afterward, and her boyfriend, Oliver Hayes, made sure she never forgot it. Oliver was a mid-level portfolio manager at the firm. He was devastatingly handsome, with a charismatic smile and an expensive Ralph Lauren wardrobe that he bought using her credit cards. They had been together for 3 years, a relationship built on his subtle, constant chipping away of her self-esteem. If you dropped 40 pounds, Chloe, maybe I'd take you to Perse for our anniversary, he had told her just last week, sipping a macchiato while she packed his lunch. Until then, let's just order Thai. I don't want people staring. She had endured his cruelty because she believed she couldn't do better. But on a rainy Tuesday evening in November, the emotional abuse escalated into something far more dangerous. It was 9:00 p.m. The Oculus Financial office was deserted, save for the hum of the HVAC system and the cold glow of Chloe's dual Dell monitors. She was deep in the offshore Cayman accounts, running a routine audit when she found it. A ghost transaction. $4.2 million had been siphoned out of a Romano holding company and routed into an encrypted private account in Switzerland. Her heart hammered against her ribs. No one stole from Victor Romano. The man was a myth, a ghost, a lethal predator who allegedly dismantled his enemies with chilling precision. Chloe's fingers flew across the keyboard, tracing the IP address of the unauthorized transfer. The blood drained from her face. The IP address didn't belong to a rival cartel or a Russian hacker. It belonged to her own apartment in Brooklyn. Specifically, it belonged to Oliver's personal MacBook. Panic seized her throat. Oliver was stealing from the Mafia, and he was using her secure remote access credentials to do it. If the Romano family found out, they wouldn't just kill Oliver. They would kill her, assuming she was the mastermind. She printed the encrypted logs, shoved the thick stack of papers into her leather tote bag, and bolted out of the building. When she burst into their third-floor walk-up in Williamsburg, Oliver was packing a sleek black Toomey duffel bag. He looked up, his expression hardening as he saw the terror in her eyes. "Oliver," she gasped, rain dripping from her hair. "The Cayman accounts. The $4 million. What did you do?" Oliver didn't panic. Instead, a cold, vicious smirk spread across his face. "I was wondering how long it would take your fat, obsessive little brain to catch up." "You used my login!" Chloe screamed, dropping her tote bag. "Victor Romano will kill us. You have to wire it back, right now." "I'm not doing anything of the sort," Oliver said, casually tossing a stack of passports into the bag. I'm going to Gstaad. You, on the other hand, are going to take the fall. I've spent the last 6 months routing the IP trails to your workstation. Who are they going to believe? Me, the golden boy who brings in clients, or the pathetic oversized accountant who eats her feelings at her desk? You're a monster, she whispered, stepping toward the door to run. She never made it. Oliver lunged across the room, his fist connecting squarely with her cheekbone. The force of the blow sent her crashing to the hardwood floor. Pain exploded in her skull, a blinding flash of white light that left her ears ringing. Before she could process the shock, Oliver's expensive Oxford shoe buried itself into her ribs. You stay right there, you stupid cow, he spat, his face twisted in disgust. He grabbed her by the hair, hauling her up just to backhand her across the mouth, splitting her lip. The metallic taste of blood flooded her tongue. She collapsed against the coffee table, gasping for air as a bruised rib screamed in agony. The Romanos will be looking for a thief tomorrow, Oliver sneered, zipping up his bag. Good luck explaining it's not you. The door slammed shut. The deadbolt clicked. Chloe lay on the floor, weeping as blood pooled on the rug. But as the shock subsided, a desperate, fiery instinct for survival took over. Oliver had underestimated her. He thought her weight made her weak. He thought her love made her blind. She dragged herself up, her entire body screaming. She grabbed her tote bag with the printed evidence. She wasn't going to wait to be hunted. She was going straight to the devil himself. The St. Regis Hotel in Manhattan loomed against the stormy night sky like a fortress. The penthouse suite belonged exclusively to Victor Romano. Chloe stumbled through the opulent Astor Court lobby, her clothes soaked, her face a swelling mosaic of purple and black. The pristine concierge staff stared in horror. But before security could intercept her, a tall man in a charcoal bespoke suit stepped into her path. It was Arthur, Victor Romano's notoriously ruthless right-hand man. His icy blue eyes scanned her battered face, narrowing sharply. He didn't ask questions. He simply took her elbow. Upstairs, Arthur murmured. Now. The private elevator ride was a blur of nausea and terror. When the brass doors parted, Chloe stepped into a sprawling penthouse that smelled of expensive cigar smoke, rain, and Tom Ford cologne. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Fifth Avenue was Victor Romano. He was a massive man, imposing and lethal, with dark hair threaded with silver and shoulders that stretched the fabric of his black Brioni shirt. Victor was a man of terrifying stillness. He turned around, his dark eyes landing on her. Victor had known Chloe Harper for 2 years. She didn't know it, but he had watched her. During the quarterly financial presentations, while the other executives ignored her, Victor had been captivated by her brilliant mind and her soft, lush body. In a world of starving, plastic socialites, Chloe's curves were a revelation to him. He had silently admired the way she bit her lip when she was thinking, the way her hips swayed when she walked to the projector. He had wanted her, but he kept his distance, knowing his world was too steeped in blood for a woman so pure. But right now, the woman he secretly adored was standing in his living room, shattered and bleeding. Victor covered the distance between them in 3 long strides. The icy calm he was famous for shattered. "Who hurt you?" he roared. The sound was primal, a violent eruption that rattled the baccarat crystal glasses resting on the mahogany wet bar. His hands, large and scarred, hovered over her face, terrified to touch her, lest he break her further. Chloe flinched, tears spilling over her swollen cheek. "Mr. Romano, I didn't steal it. I swear to you, I didn't steal the money." "Fuck the money," Victor snarled, his eyes blazing with a demonic fury as he examined the split in her lip and the darkening bruise around her eye. I said, "Who did this to you?" Before Chloe could force the name through her trembling lips, Arthur stepped forward. "I believe I have the answer, boss," Arthur said, his voice deadly quiet. He handed Victor a secure iPad. Arthur, ever the Phantom, had been investigating a minor security tripwire on the firm's servers all evening. When Chloe had bypassed the firewall to find the stolen funds, Arthur had instantly mirrored her desktop and tapped into her apartment's smart home network. Victor took the iPad. The screen was split. On the left side was the undeniable digital trail. Oliver Hayes routing $4.2 million from the Romano accounts, using Chloe's login, and booking a private jet to Switzerland. But it was the video on the right side of the screen that made the temperature in the penthouse plummet to absolute zero. It was the hacked feed from the Ring indoor camera sitting on Chloe's bookshelf. Victor watched in agonizing high definition as Oliver Hayes struck Chloe. He heard the sickening crack of Oliver's fist against her face. He heard the vile, degrading slurs about her weight. He watched the man kick her while she was down. The silence that followed in the penthouse was suffocating. It was the heavy, suffocating silence before a nuclear detonation. Victor didn't yell. The roar was gone, replaced by a terrifying, dead-eyed stillness that Arthur knew meant an impending massacre. Victor gently placed the iPad face down on the desk. "Arthur," Victor whispered, his voice vibrating with a lethal promise. "Yes, boss. Ground every private flight out of Teterboro, JFK, and Newark. Lock down the city. If Oliver Hayes makes it to international airspace, I will cut your heart out." Victor's eyes didn't leave Chloe's battered face. "Bring him to the warehouse in Queens. Do not kill him. He is mine." "Consider it done," Arthur said, disappearing into the elevator. Victor slowly turned his full attention back to Chloe. She was trembling so hard, her knees gave out. As she collapsed, Victor caught her, his massive arms wrapping around her lush frame, lifting her against his chest as easily as if she weighed nothing at all. "I've got you," he murmured fiercely into her wet hair, the violence entirely absent from his tone. "You're safe now, Mia Bella. I've got you." He carried her to the sprawling velvet sofa, laying her down gently. He barked an order into his phone for the syndicate's private doctor to get to the penthouse immediately. Then he knelt beside her, pulling a silk handkerchief from his pocket to tenderly dab the blood from her chin. "He called me. He said I was fat and stupid," Chloe sobbed, the emotional trauma bleeding out of her now that the adrenaline was fading. "He said no one would believe me." Victor's jaw clenched so hard, a muscle feathered in his cheek. He reached out, his thumb gently tracing the soft curve of her unbruised jawline, sliding down to rest against the lush fullness of her neck. "You are the most brilliant woman I have ever met," Victor said, his dark eyes locking onto hers with burning sincerity. "And your body is perfect, exactly as it is. Every soft inch of you is a masterpiece he wasn't worthy of looking at, let alone touching." Chloe stared at him, her breath catching. The most dangerous man in New York was looking at her like she was a goddess. "He thought you were invisible," Victor whispered, leaning in until his lips brushed her forehead. "But by tomorrow morning, Oliver Hayes will know that he just touched the future queen of this city, and he will spend his final agonizing hours regretting it." The storm outside the St. Regis penthouse mirrored the violent turbulence simmering beneath Victor Romano's skin. The rain battered against the reinforced, bulletproof glass, a relentless drumming that filled the silence of the sprawling, opulent room. Dr. Harrison, a discreet physician who had stitched up countless gunshot wounds and broken bones for the syndicate over the past 2 decades, worked with quiet, mechanical efficiency. He cleaned the deep laceration on Chloe's lip, applied a soothing, medicated arnica salve to the blossoming bruises across her cheekbone, and tightly bound her fractured rib. Throughout the entire agonizing process, Victor never left her side. He sat on the edge of the velvet sofa, his massive hand enveloping her small, trembling fingers. Chloe's breath hitched every time the doctor probed her ribs, but Victor's thumb stroked her knuckles in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, grounding her. "The rib is cracked, not completely broken," Dr. Harrison murmured, packing away his medical supplies into a scuffed leather bag. "She needs absolute rest for the next 3 weeks. No heavy lifting, no stress. The facial swelling will peak tomorrow, but the salve will expedite the healing process. Keep her hydrated." "Thank you, Doctor," Victor said, his voice a low rumble that left no room for further conversation. Dr. Harrison nodded, knowing better than to linger when Victor Romano was in this particular mood. The heavy mahogany door clicked shut, leaving them alone in the cavernous penthouse. Chloe lay back against the silk pillows, her body aching with a dull, throbbing intensity. But it was the emotional exhaustion that felt the heaviest. She looked at Victor, truly looked at him, trying to reconcile the terrifying Mafia boss of urban legend with the man gently adjusting the cashmere blanket over her legs. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, her voice raspy and frail. "I'm just an accountant. I'm nobody." Victor's dark, piercing eyes snapped up to hers, flashing with a sudden, intense heat. "Never say that again," he commanded, though his tone was layered with a fierce, protective warmth. "You are not a nobody, Chloe. You are the beating heart of Oculus Financial. For 2 years, I have watched you carry the weight of a dozen incompetent men on your shoulders. I have watched you fix their mistakes, secure our assets, and do it all while that pathetic excuse for a man dragged you down." Chloe blinked, tears welling in her eyes again. You watched me." "More than I should have," Victor confessed, leaning closer. The scent of his expensive Tom Ford cologne and dark tobacco wrapped around her, intoxicating and safe. "I saw the way he looked at you. I saw the way he diminished you. I wanted to break his neck 6 months ago when he sneered at you in the lobby for buying a bagel. I stayed away because my world is drenched in blood, and you are pure. But I will never forgive myself for letting him get close enough to lay a hand on you." He reached out, his knuckles lightly grazing the unbruised side of her neck. "You are beautiful, Chloe. Do you understand me? Your mind is a weapon, and your body is a blessing. Every soft curve of you is something a real man would worship on his knees. Oliver Hayes is a coward who tried to make you feel small because he knew deep down you were vastly superior to him in every single way." The validation hit her like a physical force. For 3 years, Oliver had conditioned her to hate her reflection, to apologize for taking up space, to shrink herself to make him comfortable. Now the most powerful man in the city was looking at her plush, size 20 figure with a hunger and reverence she had only ever read about in romance novels. Before she could respond, the encrypted satellite phone in Victor's pocket vibrated. The tender, vulnerable atmosphere in the room instantly vanished, replaced by an arctic chill. Victor pulled out the device, his jaw setting into a rigid line of pure granite. "Speak," Victor answered. On the other end, Arthur's voice was completely devoid of emotion, a professional delivering a standard quarterly report. "We have him, boss. I was sipping Dom Perignon in the private terminal at Teterboro. He had the laptop and the transfer codes on his person. He genuinely believed he was untouchable." "Did he resist?" Victor asked, his voice dropping an octave. "He tried to bribe us," Arthur replied, a hint of dark amusement slipping into his tone. "Offered me $1 million of your own dollars to let him board the Gulf Stream. I broke his nose. He's currently secured in the meat locker at the Queen's warehouse, awaiting your arrival." "I am on my way," Victor said. He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his tailored jacket. He looked down at Chloe, the coldness in his eyes softening just a fraction. "I have business to attend to," Victor said quietly. "My private security detail is outside the door. No one enters this room except me. You rest, Chloe. Eat whatever you want from the kitchen. Sleep. When you wake up, the ghost of Oliver Hayes will never haunt you again." "Victor," she breathed, grabbing his wrist before he could pull away. She didn't ask what he was going to do. She already knew. She just looked into his dark eyes, a newfound, fierce strength stirring beneath her battered ribs. Make sure he knows it was me who found the discrepancy. Make sure he knows my fat, obsessive little brain is the reason he failed." A slow, terrifying, and deeply proud smile spread across Victor's face. He leaned down, pressing a reverent kiss to the back of her hand. "I will make sure it is his absolute final thought, my queen." The warehouse in Queens smelled of ozone, rust, and the metallic tang of old blood. It was a massive, cavernous space, entirely hidden from the prying eyes of the NYPD and the FBI. When Victor's black armored SUV rolled through the heavy steel doors, the syndicate soldiers standing guard immediately straightened, their expressions hardening into masks of absolute loyalty. Victor stepped out of the vehicle, shrugging off his expensive suit jacket and handing it to a waiting subordinate. He unbuttoned his cuffs, slowly rolling the crisp white sleeves of his shirt up past his elbows, revealing the intricate, dark tattoos of the old country snaking up his thick forearms. Arthur stood by the entrance to the meat locker, a heavy steel door covered in frost. "He's been singing since we strung him up," Arthur briefed him, handing Victor a heavy pair of reinforced leather gloves. Turns out, stealing the $4 million was just his retirement fund. He was simultaneously downloading our offshore client manifest. He was planning to sell the entire financial architecture of the Romano family to the Moretti syndicate once he landed in Geneva. Victor paused, pulling the leather gloves tight over his knuckles. The betrayal was no longer just a theft. It was treason. But surprisingly, the jeopardy to his empire barely registered in his mind. All he could see, playing on an agonizing loop behind his eyelids, was the Ring camera footage. The sickening sound of Oliver's fist hitting Chloe's face. "The Morettis can have his ashes," Victor said coldly. Arthur opened the heavy steel door. Oliver Hayes was suspended by his wrists from a heavy steel meat hook, his expensive Ralph Lauren clothes, torn and stained with sweat and the blood from his shattered nose. He was shivering violently in the freezing temperature, his eyes wide with a pathetic, animalistic terror. When Victor stepped into the frigid room, Oliver let out a pathetic, strangled sob. "Mr. Romano!" Oliver gagged, his polished corporate facade completely obliterated. "Please, please, it's a mistake. I was framed. It was Chloe. That fat, useless bitch was trying to ruin me because I was going to leave her. She set the IP trails. You have to check the logs." Victor didn't speak. He walked forward with deliberate, terrifying slowness. He stopped mere inches from Oliver, his massive frame towering over the suspended man. "Chloe," Victor whispered, his voice dangerously soft. "Yes!" Oliver cried, desperate hope flashing in his eyes. "She's a jealous psycho. She orchestrated the whole thing. I swear to God, Victor, I'm loyal to you. You can't believe a woman like that sat over me." Victor struck him. It wasn't a warning blow. It was a devastating, piston-like punch directly to Oliver's abdomen that cracked 3 ribs instantly. Oliver's eyes bulged, a violent spray of saliva erupting from his mouth as all the air was forcefully, violently expelled from his lungs. He hung there, gagging and suffocating. "You will not speak her name," Victor growled, grabbing Oliver by the throat and squeezing until the man's face began to turn, a mottled, bruised purple. "You will not speak of her. You will not think of her. And you will certainly not lie about her to me." Victor released his grip just enough to let Oliver suck in a desperate, rattling breath. "I saw the security footage, Oliver," Victor said, his tone dropping to a chilling, demonic register. "I saw what you did to her. I saw you strike the woman I intend to make my wife." Oliver's eyes widened in absolute, unadulterated horror. The realization hit him like a freight train. He hadn't just hit a disposable girlfriend. He had assaulted the secret obsession of the most ruthless Mafia don on the eastern seaboard. "No," Oliver whimpered, blood bubbling past his lips. "No, you don't understand. She is brilliant," Victor interrupted, his fist colliding with Oliver's jaw, shattering the bone with a sickening crunch. "She found your pathetic amateur ghost transaction in less than 10 minutes. She locked down the Cayman accounts. She handed me your head on a silver platter." Victor stepped back, removing the bloodied leather gloves and dropping them onto the freezing concrete floor. He turned to Arthur, his eyes completely dead. "He wanted to sell our secrets to the Morettis," Victor said smoothly. "Ensure he can never speak, type, or travel again. Take him to the incinerator when you are finished. Leave no trace." Oliver began to scream, thrashing violently against the chains, begging and pleading through a shattered jaw. But Victor was already walking away. The heavy steel door of the meat locker slammed shut, cutting off the pathetic wails abruptly. Victor washed his hands at a stainless steel sink in the warehouse office, scrubbing the invisible taint of Oliver Hayes from his skin. He didn't feel a shred of remorse. In his world, violence was a currency, and Oliver had accumulated a massive debt. It was paid in full. By the time Victor returned to the St. Regis penthouse, the sun was beginning to rise over Manhattan, painting the city skyline in bruised shades of violet and gold. He moved quietly through the suite, shedding his ruined shirt and changing into a fresh, soft Henley. He walked into the master bedroom. Chloe was fast asleep in the center of the massive king-sized bed, surrounded by a sea of dark silk sheets. The bruising on her face was stark against her pale skin, but her breathing was deep and even. She looked peaceful. She looked safe. Victor sat on the edge of the mattress, careful not to jostle her injured ribs. He watched her for a long time, the violent predator entirely replaced by a devoted guardian. As if sensing his presence, Chloe stirred. Her eyelashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. She looked at him, groggy but entirely lucid. "Is it done?" she asked softly. "I is a ghost, Chloe," Victor murmured, reaching out to gently brush a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "He will never hurt you, or anyone else ever again." Chloe let out a long, shuddering breath, a tear slipping from the corner of her eye and sinking into the silk pillowcase. It was a tear of profound relief, the final release of 3 years of psychological torment. "You saved my life," she whispered. "You saved your own life," Victor corrected her fiercely. "You fought back. You came to me. You are the strongest woman I know." He carefully shifted his weight, sliding under the covers beside her. He didn't crowd her, intensely aware of her injuries, but he stayed close enough that she could feel the immense, radiating heat of his body. "What happens now?" she asked, staring up at the gilded ceiling of the penthouse. "I can't go back to Oculus. Not after this." "You are never going back to a cubicle, Chloe," Victor said, his voice a low, comforting rumble. "When you are healed, if you want it, you will have a corner office. You will manage the entire financial architecture of the Romano family. You will have a staff of 50 men who will call you Mom, and who will tremble if you so much as frown at a spreadsheet." Chloe turned her head, looking at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. "You would trust me with that?" "I would trust you with my life," Victor stated, absolute conviction burning in his gaze. He shifted closer, his large hand gently resting on her waist, appreciating the soft, generous curve of her hip. "And I want you to stay here, with me. I want to show you what it feels like to be worshipped, exactly as you are. I want to spoil you, protect you, and give you the world you were always too afraid to demand." Chloe's breath hitched. She looked at the dangerous, lethal man beside her, a man who had orchestrated a murder on her behalf, yet treated her like spun glass. For the first time in her 28 years, she didn't feel the need to shrink. She didn't feel the need to apologize for her size, her intelligence, or her existence. She carefully shifted her body, wincing slightly as her ribs protested, and rested her head against Victor's broad, solid chest. His powerful arm immediately wrapped around her, anchoring her to him. "Okay," Chloe whispered, closing her eyes as she listened to the steady, strong rhythm of his heartbeat. "I'll stay." Victor pressed his lips to the top of her head, a fierce, victorious smile playing on his lips as the morning light flooded the penthouse. The Queen had taken her throne, and the city of New York would never be the same. Did you love this intense Mafia romance? Hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling, dramatic love stories where the bad guys protect the women they love. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a twist. Share this video with your romance-obsessed friends and drop a comment below. What would you do if a Mafia boss came to your rescue? See you in the next gripping episode.